Mansfield today with a fresh start to the week, and let's first assess the markets and see what's going on. Say good morning to Chris Gibbons, our economic correspondent. It's an important week ahead, Chris, for the global economy, all because of one key factor that's going to take place in Washington on Wednesday.
Jeremy, a very good morning. You're absolutely right. The entry in my diary says simply FOMC interest rate decision. Translate that for you. It's short for US Federal Reserve's Open Markets Committee due to announce its decision on interest rates. Always closely watched. This one has been under the microscope for the last month or so, simply because inflation in America is at 8.5%, its highest level in 40 years. The Fed Chair Jay Powell's already signaled he's looking at a 50 basis point hike, 0.5%. Some experts are calling for a full 1%.
So what does that mean here to do with us? How's it going to affect us?
Well, as ever, the answer is plenty. Inflation in the US, along with the war in Ukraine, pushing the dollar higher and higher. Now, that is good for our commodity exporters when they bring their dollar profits home, but it also brings with it important inflation, import inflation rather, when we import anything denominated in dollars like oil. And then when the US Fed jacks up interest rates to try and bring inflation over there under control, our Reserve Bank comes under pressure to follow suit, even though our economy is faltering at best. We really need to keep interest rates low if we can, even though we're also staring down inflation. We think we're going to see US interest rates somewhere around 3% by the end of this year, early next. That means another 1.5% to 2% on our interest rates over here.
And all of this on the back of some dreadful falls in the stock markets, especially in the US.
The month of April was one of the worst in many years in the US. Inflation, Ukraine, monetary tightening from the Fed, severe lockdowns as a result of COVID in China, all conspiring against those markets. The Nasdaq down 13.3% on the month, its worst monthly performance since 2008. The S&P 500 down 8.8%, its biggest monthly drop since the start of the pandemic. The Dow down 3.9%. That leaves the Dow down over 9% year to date. The S&P 500 down over 13%, and the Nasdaq, take a deep breath, down over 21% year to date, 24% down from its all-time high. Last Friday alone, particularly bloody, the Dow down 2.8%, S&P 500 down 3.6%, the Nasdaq down 4.2%. Key to all of that, at least on Friday, Amazon reporting its biggest loss since 2006, dropping 14%. Apple down 3.7% on a warning about supply chain problems. Of course, that's based in China. US markets, Jeremy, not in a good place right now.
Yeah, it would seem the old broker's adage of sell in May and go away still sticks with us, doesn't it? How are we doing here?
Are we any better? Yes, we are. Although both the all-share and the top 40 are negative for the year to date. The all-share's down 1.7%, top 40 down 2.4% since January 1st. Both of those down over 4% in the month of March. Helping considerably is the Rand, very slightly ahead against the dollar year to date, up over 8% against the euro and sterling. Although that's as much to do with dollar strength as anything related to the Rand. The dollar itself now up 7% year to date against the euro.
Why might we also see the Rand move weaker if our inflation picks up? Surely it should.
Correct. Typically, we'd have inflation in the US and Europe running around 2%, ours at, say, 5%. That's a 3% differential, which implies an annual weakening of the Rand against the euro or the dollar, about 3%. Right now, though, we're at just under 6% inflation. The US, as I said a moment ago, at 8.5%. So that's one of the reasons the Rand is holding up. We've also just had our producer inflation figures, 11.9% in the month of March, quite a long way above expectations. Now, PPI feeds into the broader consumer inflation down the line, 6 months, 12 months or so. And if we start to climb rapidly, I think it's a fair bet that the Rand will weaken. Again, more evidence that we are going to get more interest rate hikes and steeper than we'd probably like.
A change tack here for me. We've just had a week where we saw part 4 of the Zondo Commission and interstate capture. What were the highlights for you? and what are the implications for business in South Africa?
Well, first, Jeremy, let me point out that we already know much of the contents of the report. That's if we've been following the daily activities of the Commission, reading the Gupta leaks emails and so on. The role of Jacob Zuma, the Guptas, the role also played by some of the big corporates, EOH, Bosasa, SAP, and the big international consultancies, McKinsey, Bain, to name just two. But what Zondo's done is pull the whole mess together, whilst at the same time untangling the various threads. So we can see now very clearly, incontrovertibly, the role played by Jacob Zuma when he was president, especially with regard to the looting at Eskom. The sacking of Nhlanhla Nene as Minister of Finance when he refused to sign off on the Russian nuclear deal, the destruction of SARS, ditto the SABC, Denel, and so on. As the Financial Times in London puts it, it is the most sweeping indictment yet of the country's former leader, finding that he readily opened the doors for the Guptas to help themselves to the money and the assets of the people of South Africa. Says Zondo, I quote, President Zuma was captured by the Guptas and they could get him to do whatever they wanted in order to advance their business interests and to advance state capture. We've also seen a very clear finger being pointed at the likes of Brian Molefe, Anosh Singh, and Kokomat Shela, all in it up to their eyeballs. And Zondo is very clear. He says the former Eskom board should be criminally prosecuted.
But praise from Zondo for certain individuals and companies as well.
Well, I've mentioned Nhlanhla Nene, who was fired for standing up to Zuma over the nuclear deal. He also gets a mention for standing up to Zuma's, acolyte, handmaiden, whatever, Dudu Myeni, chair of SAA, over the dodgy deals that she was trying to push through at SAA. National Treasury gets a nod as a department. Deservedly high praise, I think, for blocking much that was illegal. Another interesting one from a corporate perspective is EOH, the services provider, which was also mired in corruption until new CEO Stephen van Coller took over. Zondo praised EOH and van Coller as being the only company to proactively approach the Commission to be given the opportunity to disclose publicly what wrongdoing had taken place historically within its ranks. Van Coller is a standout. If you want to see an example of A, how to turn a company around, B, how to disclose and uncover fraud and corruption, use EOH as your case study. Think about that. The only company to approach the Commission of its own free will. As Van Coller himself has said, with masterly understatement, it's a pity more corporates would not do this.
So when do we get the good folk named in Zondo doing the perp walk and climbing into orange overalls?
Well, that is the million-dollar question, or should that be billion-rand question? It's now up to Shamila Batoy, National Prosecuting Authority, who assures us that she and her team are working as hard and as fast as they can. Jeremy, we know three things. The first is that the NPA is underfunded and understaffed. The second is that big financial cases take time to assemble. It took the Americans 5 years to nail Jeff Skilling after Enron's collapse. Similar amount of time for the Germans to draw up charges against Markus Jooste after Steinhoff. The third thing is this. No one is going to take either President Ramaphosa or South Africa seriously when it comes to investment and cleaning up corruption until some of those very big names are brought to trial and convicted.
Okay, let's change tack again. Executive pay once again in the spotlight.
First up to bat, MTN CEO Ralph Mopita. He's just trousered 84 million rand. He's been in the job since September 2020. MTN's board says he deserves his pay, having overseen 15 successive quarters of operating improvements. Not quite certain how they do their sums over at MTN, but September 2020 to now is just 8 quarters. But that 84 million rand pales into insignificance, Jeremy, when compared to the 300 million rand pocketed by Sibanye Stillwater CEO Neil Froneman. That's 300 million rand for 1 year's work. Much of that is down to record commodity prices, which in turn drive Sibanye's share price up. And in fairness, it's around $20 million US, pretty much what a CEO of a similar sized company would earn in the US, Canada, or Australia. It doesn't compare with other South African CEOs, though. Fin24 reporting that Implat's Nico Muller scored 108.5 million rand last year, while Amplat's Natasha Viljoen had to struggle by poor lamb with just 28.9 million. But I think you can also understand why the two unions on strike for higher wages at Sibanye have told the company to take their latest offer and shove it where the sun don't shine. If the boss can take home 300 million rand, We'd like some of that too, as their message. You know what, Jeremy? Maybe they have a point.
Chris Gibbons, once again, thank you very much for being with us, and we'll catch you next Monday. Chris Gibbons there on Mansfield Today. Thank you for being with us as well, and we'll catch you with the Economic Report on Monday next week as well. Bye-bye.